Welcome to the Grit Blueprint Podcast.
I'm your host, Stephanie Couch. This podcast is about branding, building, and business. It also highlights the grit that it takes to be successful in business and in life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Grit Blueprint Podcast with Stephanie Couch. I am very excited today to have my guest, my friend Mel. Welcome to the show, Mel. Thank you for being on.
Yes, Stephanie, thanks for having me.
Mel is a dynamo in the glass world. She works at NGA, the National Glass Association, and her and I met a few months ago on LinkedIn and have become very close friends very quickly because she is awesome. And I'm excited for you guys to get to know her today on the podcast. So thank you for joining. Let's dive right in. Tell me a little bit about you and your story. You work at the NGA now, but you've been in this industry a long time. You have a great history working in the glass industry. Tell me about you and how you got into it and your journey.
You know, I love part of the reason how I got into it was because of another woman. So I love being able to tell this story.
Awesome.
And it's pretty classic, I think, where we can all find ourselves sometimes, male or female. I went to college right after high school, and it was really because that's what you're supposed to do type of deal. Ended up leaving, and it wasn't that I didn't have a great job or anything. It was just kind of growing up and figuring out those things. And a friend of mine that I went to high school with in Red Wing, Minnesota, she'd actually worked at Red Wing Glass when we were in high school. And that's where all the hockey player boys worked too for some reason. So I was hanging out there a lot. But yeah, we reconnected after, off to school, and she was working at Old Castle building envelope in Bloomington. And she said, they had a customer service position available. So I interviewed for that. And that's kind of the rest is history.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that it was a woman that brought you in and kind of helped you see the ropes of, she probably helped you kind of know the ins and outs when you got there, I'm guessing.
Yes. And, it's kind of that first experience of learning that people give you these opportunities, right? If they didn't believe you in a sense, right? So I kind of, that's the first time, my friend got me this job, but this was our career. We were it was that grown up kind of phase.
Yeah.
We're at that cusp.
That's awesome. So after you did that, tell me a little bit about the rest of your career and how you got to where you are now.
Well, I was there at Old Castle for about a year. I think they had just bought in some other businesses type of deal. And our location at the time wasn't one that they were going to keep running. So ended up at Bryn Glass in Minneapolis, not too far away. A lot of the same customers. And from there, it was customer service, but then it was estimating. And it was project management. And it was high volume projects. And it was just all the different roles up to project sales, which was mostly estimating projects or dealing with general contractors and stuff. So
how did you adjust to that, going from that role to so many different things? I mean, how did you learn to do those things? Because training in the industry is one of those things we talk about a lot. I know the NGA has a glass training program now, but was there training back then, or did you just kind of have to figure it out on your own?
There was, so, and I don't want to forget to mention this. I remember being so curious about storefront estimating, which is aluminum storefront and door hardware and glass. Mm-hmm. And some of the people who would build the door frames and whatnot in the fabrication shop, they're like, oh, you could do this, you could do that. Or the estimator at the time, Eric, he's like, oh, you could totally do this. So they got me excited about it.
Yeah.
So at Bryn, that's what my goal was. After customer service, I wanted to get into estimating, and that was kind of the next step up. So I worked on that, and I got it, which was awesome. But I worked with another gal at the time, and this was 2006, and we were the only two female estimators.
That's awesome.
And I apologize because I'm going to go kind of in circles like I do, but there was, it was this glass and glazing course, blueprint reading course that we took through Ghana. And that was Glass Association of North America, which is not part of NGA. So.
Okay. So they kind of helped you get started in your journey, and now it's full circle to where you're doing the same thing for other people, which is really cool.
It is. And it's so, I still get the chills to this day because there's part of me oh yeah, what kid grows up and I sell glass and I love it. But we don't think of this when we're
sure
the title exactly, but if you think about it, it's the teamwork I love. It's the people in industry that I love. It's repping like a product that's valuable in my mind.
Yeah.
And it's all this learning and
One of the things that I think that's a great point of is, especially little girls, but boys and girls growing up now, I don't know that we think of learning construction in general. Well, I mean, maybe there are some kids that want to dress up like a construction worker or whatever, but I know when I was in kindergarten, I wanted to be a president, paleontologist. So that was a good combination. I felt like dinosaurs and politicians.
Yes.
Not really sure what my mind was on there, but things have definitely changed. Neither one interests me anymore. But that was when I thought I could do that in kindergarten, like both of them. I was going to do both. Yeah. And so I never really thought about that, even though my dad had a lumberyard. I was in the lumberyard. I loved the lumberyard. But once I got a little older, because I was in it, I thought of it. But if I hadn't worked there with my dad, I don't know that I'd be doing this right now, having this conversation with you. I don't think I would have done that because I didn't really think about shop class in school. I didn't know the opportunities that were in the industry. So I believe we have a really vested interest as an industry and a world to have people that are young see this as a viable and amazing career option.
Yes.
How do we have fifth graders look at a job and say, oh man, look at that amazing building. A glazer did that. Someone put that glass on that building. Because, when you drive downtown and you see these awesome buildings, I remember being very mesmerized by them. But I never understood the way that someone's physically up there doing that to make that happen. And then that could be you, and you could be doing this job and having an amazing career. And that college isn't the only path. That's right. Another thing, like you mentioned, you obligatory go to college. That's right, you go to college. And I think that's starting to shift. But how do we get younger kids to see trades and other parts of construction as a really great option for a career? How do you think, as NGA obviously is doing a lot of this, what do you think that starts with? Like, how are you guys working on that now?
It's, we're doing recruitment with like some of our members who are putting together kits and, so we'll be at the trade, like they're not trade shows. And this is not my forte, so pardon me, but what we all went to the career fairs, I'm sure, high school, like that, to get the word out. But going back to, how you came up in lumber, my dad was in cement, right? So I was always down at the ready mix plant or whatever.
Yeah.
I have to
that sounds like a fun childhood. Like, what could possibly go wrong?
It was, right? And then it was the same thing. Look at that big glass building that my dad would be like, that was this and this mix, whatever.
Yeah.
And this was like 1987. I remember saying, Dad, when I grow up, I want to work with you.
Yeah.
And he said, this is no place for a lady. He didn't mean it mean.
My dad said the same thing to me. Don't go into the lumber business.
And I almost feel like it was being a daddy's girl. Like, I was so mad when we moved from the country to town, like around 7, and I had to wear a shirt and my dad did. I'm like, what?
Yeah, like, let me just go run wild and free.
Yeah. I think for me, it was still like I was part of it, but not necessarily right in the glass part. Like, so I got all of the things. Like, my dad would have Christmas parties and stuff like that. You'd be in the parade.
I think that probably had a lot to do with you being so open to going to work there. Like, you never questioned it. Also, there was hot boys at the
right.
That probably had a little bit to do with it. This
was 94 though. I'm just saying 19.
It's funny because what we do when we're children, I think it leaves an impression. My dad always said that to me jokingly, but not really. He's like, you're going to go to college. I want you to at least get your degree. If you want to come back and sell lumber, you can. But he wanted me to do something different because he felt like there was, other opportunity. But every day I'm like so grateful that I didn't do that because there's so much opportunity right here. And I just love that people are finally, it feels like seeing that a little bit, especially with all these big layoffs with like tech companies and all these things that seem real sexy to go into.
Right.
And now they're having, not that construction can't have layoffs, but it's definitely happening a lot more in the tech sector and these more nuanced industries. So trades are looking pretty good right now for a lot of people.
Yeah. And there's great people in the trades
exactly amazing people and more women every day. We're up to not in the trades as much, but 14% women in construction. And then I think it's 4 or 5% women in the trades. If we can get that, my goal is 2030. So in 6 years to have 30%. So 30 by 2030. Wow. And I would love to see that with all these people retiring, and people coming in to have a lot more women. So that's a big goal of Build Women.
Yeah. And I hate, and I'm not trying to skip around. I know we kind of went through some questions, but
Yeah.
it comes back to construction. And it's really, so construction for me, I was in the office, I was doing blueprints and takeoffs and things like that, but it's still related. But I
Yeah.
think of, even after high school or if you're going to college, your summertime job.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in construction instead of like me, like serving, waitressing, I would have made so much more money. You grow up and you learn that, women get paid 80% on the man's dollar, and it's tough to deal with and understand. You get through it, but not in construction, especially not out in the field. So like, I wish I would have really, I don't know if I would have went for it, but I feel like I wish it was like one of those things. Like I wish there was women's hockey in high school when I was young. It didn't happen until after. Like I wonder, or like shop class was more for us.
Yeah.
Like when I see that changing, but it would be so sad.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool to have those skills, especially even for DIY stuff around your house. Even if you didn't go into construction as a career, you did something else. If you need to stand a wall up or somebody needs something in the bathroom or whatever, you know how to do it because you did it for summer jobs. So it's a great point. And just to explore it, because you can go see before you get out of school, do you really want to go to college? Do you want to go to the trades? What do you want to do? It's an option. So I love that. I think a shop class, like really thought about for women, would be so cool in high school. I would have 100% have done that. I would have thought it would have been awesome, actually.
Yep. A lot of this thing, it kind of comes down to with me, like we're all in this together, right? We're all in the same water swimming around. It's no one person to blame or one thing, but it's just kind of how it starts with boys are blue, girls are pink. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but how we just veer off to make it too easy to, like how we put people in their roles. And it's like going all the way back to the beginning. Like, nope.
Yep. And thinking about the fact that it's not a gender thing. It is up here that it's society also blocks some things like, hey, you shouldn't do that because you're a girl or because you're a guy or whatever. But it's not really a gender thing because the job can be done by most of the time any person. There are some jobs in construction that you have to be able to lift something, or that there are a lot of men that may not qualify for certain jobs, like pile driving or something like that, where it's really strenuous. But most of the time you could do it as a woman, a man, a young person, an older person. There's options. So that's exciting to me to be able to see people finally envisioning that and actually going after it. And you make a lot of money doing it too. It's not all about money, but it is a damn good career. So people should definitely look at it. And I think teenagers, if you're 20, 30 years old and you have a career you're not crazy about, you're still young enough to go do a trade and have a whole nother career doing something you love.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, think of how much energy we have at that time. I remember, like, I'd work like 3 jobs and I'd be waitressing or serving, weddings or whatever. But that's still all of that physical movement, which I love. Like, whoa! But if I was it's when we played in the dirt in a way, whatever. Like,
no, it's a great point. I love that thought. So we talked about a little bit learning the challenges that come with women being in an industry that's not exactly made for them, or they shouldn't be in, as we said, our dads both told us jokingly. Not being mean, but some people don't feel like it's a place for women. It's starting to change. What challenges have you seen, either yourself or for other women in the career that you've chosen, that really are because of that male-dominated environment? It's not a place that they're built for or thriving in as a woman. How do you address that?
There's some, and this is coming up over the last 20 years, like there's some small things, but they're not small. It's recognizing them. Like, say the receptionist was out that week, and that's a very important role to get the phone calls coming through, answer customer questions and orders. And she was a she. So there's 4 customer service reps, right? 2 are female, 2 are male, but it was always the females who would go in and cover. And nobody was doing anything. But I didn't like it. I didn't like doing it. I wanted to sit on the desk. So I just said, like, well, why aren't we all taking turns, in this type of deal? And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess it's so fair to you.
It's not even like a thought process, unfortunately. And that's the thing is it's not, like you said, it's not malicious intent. It's just that that's just automatically the girl takes the notes, she answers the phone.
Yeah, yeah. And I would swim right along, telling like, "No, I don't like this. There's more people that could,
Yeah.
you know."
That's awesome. And I love that you have that spirit of like standing up and that they kudos to them for saying like, okay, we'll take every time, somebody takes a turn and not just the girls. So I love
Yeah.
that.
And
Any
that's
other times that you can think of like where you've been challenged like that and you've had to kind of stand your ground?
yeah, luckily, though there were, and I'm thinking like more 2006 to like 2010 or something, but
Yeah.
customers would come in and there was almost will call or whatnot. They, I would be like the most senior one to know about whatever it is they had a
Yeah.
question or whatever they needed, but they wouldn't want to listen to me. They like my male counterpart, so they'd almost
Right.
make eye contact with them the whole time or just whatever they're saying, and without trying, without anything, I had male colleagues who are like, "I don't know why you're asking me. She's the one who knows everything, or she's training me." So
Yeah.
it was seeing up and then not being alone too, in a way, like just to go.
That's cool when guys do that though, when they stand up for you but it is definitely an issue where women get walked up to and kind of ignored. But I do feel like once you prove that you're really knowledgeable and you know what you're talking about, you're the expert, then they are pretty loyal to you most of the time. Like once you answer the question a few times and they're like, okay, she's good, she knows what she's doing. They're very loyal. My customers always were, and I love that about it.
Yeah. And then
You have to prove yourself.
yes, but then it would kind of get fun as you go down the line, like, oh, this one's not quite sure. Wait till they see, and then you're like, best,
Yeah. Yeah, you always know when they come in, usually, like, you can see them looking at you and looking at the guy, and, like, they don't really wanna talk to you. Like, "Ma'am, don't you have a cake to bake or something?" Like, like a sandwich to make or something? But, yeah, it's fun to joke about it too because, I mean, you kinda have to laugh about
How
it.
can you not though? Like if we don't laugh at ourselves, like
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think the guys kinda laugh at that too because my husband and I will actually kid about it, because he does a lot of things for me that are more like woman duties. Like he'll
Right.
cook me breakfast or whatever. And we kind of laugh about that. He's like, you just leave the welding to me, honey, and I'll do this. You bake the sandwiches. And it's just funny because that's the exact opposite of how our relationship actually does. Like, I would probably be doing the welding.
That's
So,
the speaking of welding though, that's what my husband does by trade.
okay.
But he would be the nurturer, right? Or the
Yeah.
caretaker
Yeah.
if we were to have kids or any of those things. But
That's exactly how my husband is,
you got to find those, and part of it, I'm sure he grew up with just a single mom and whatnot, so with that culture. But
Yep.
he's just as manly as any other man.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's great when men are aware of both sides of the, kind of that masculine, more traditional welding guy, has a beard, whatever, manly man, lumberjack, but then he's like making you a hot tea in the morning or something. There's such a great balance. And I think women have the same thing.
Truly, we have
When
that
we
male
can-
and female yin and yang inside of us and in our back. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can do things that, whatever we want to do. If I don't want to go do something because I'm, just don't like it, it's not because I'm a girl,
Right.
So, except walk in heels. My husband cannot do that. I think women are more coordinated on that.
That's nice of you to like cut it there, like
Yeah. There's just like a few things that he just draws the line on, like he's like, I can't do that. So
we should have never learned how to do it anyways.
I know and they're not very comfortable. They do look good, but they don't feel good. That's for sure. Tennis shoes are a lot better off. So the next thing we want to talk about is personal development. We know that you do a lot of things for other women in the industry. I've seen you have glass build conferences where women are talking and doing all these amazing things, and you're really digging in and helping people grow and develop. How do you look at personal development for you? What does success look like in your career? And then for other people, how are you helping them kind of get to where they want to go? And we've talked about this a lot, using their strengths to figure out what they need to be doing that really fulfills them and also they're exceptional at.
And this is, I'm kind of bringing it back to the beginning in a way too. It's the same today as it was then, but it's like you have a sense of knowing of who has that, and one that wants to do, who you want to spend time with, because you want to invest in them because just somebody invested in you in the same way. The pay for it makes that sense. But for me, it started as simple as Heather Pavlis. Hello. She works at Northwestern Glass, but she started with us as a receptionist at Bryn. And I mean, we're back talking about binders, right? So she grew into like customer service and all of these things. And I would pass down all my notes or whatever I would do into the binder. Her and I would work together.
Yeah.
On and on and on. And she's developed and grown. It is better than I could have ever been in the role that she's in now or any role that I had since then. And that to me is the goal.
Yeah.
That's all it takes is I got better at this. Here, you take it. You're going to make it even better. And then let's just keep going on that way.
Yeah, I love that sense of really community. And you lead with connectedness, which is really important to you. And that's so visible to me when I see you with other people. How can you help people connect together and then also find things in their life that will bring them forward, will push them to be better or will teach them something that they need to learn? You're world class at that. I don't know if I've ever met anyone that's a better connector than you. And you are in the exact right job because I see you being able to do that for people, which is really cool that you found that strength that you can lean into. And you have a lot of other strengths too, but I think that one is really visible to anyone that's met you, like immediately.
Yeah.
And so you're able to use that, which is super cool because a lot of people are not in a job that they're leaning into that.
And I'm so grateful for that because it's easy to see now that that's always been my gig, and it worked. It was great, within Bryn has different branches throughout the state of Minnesota and whatnot. So I was very happy there, and I was developing myself. But now seeing it at this bigger stage, I'm like, whoa, this is so
and not even knowing what's possible for yourself, and then being able to continue to grow and push through something that you thought was a barrier, like where you get to.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the little moves that I used to do that now just feel like bigger moves. But it's the same thing. Like, Shay, I don't know if you have this talent that you recognize, but I see it, and I want you to believe in yourself. And here you go. And that's because that's what somebody did for me at one point. That's how I'm like, oh, I could estimate metal. I know what a flush bolt is now. Thanks, Greg. Just those little moments of you got this. And
and then you have to know that a flush bolt comes in 48,000 different colors inside.
Right.
It's fun when you start to learn a task like that. That's one reason why we're digging into the training so much, because there's just so much to learn. People, when you're 20 and you're like, hey, let me talk to you about doors and windows and glass. Oh my. And here's the 700,000 parts that go to make that happen.
Oh my gosh. Right. It's fun at first because you're you don't even realize it. You walk through this, you see this stuff every day. Walk through the doorway. There's a closer. There's a threshold. There's a pull handle.
Yeah. The thing that we don't notice that someone had to make and then get right and install and do all those things that we just take for granted. It's really cool.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, I do see that every day. And I can name that part.
Not see it.
What's a 6-pin lock? I don't know. It just gets really confusing.
Well, I think it's cool to see that you're really leaning into the next generation. I actually saw last week on LinkedIn that Bryn, which you're talking about, actually just put a woman in as the president, I think. And that's really cool to see. And she seems like an awesome lady. I read a little bit about her on her post that they put up about her, but that's cool to see people coming in as women and running things and really doing amazing work. And I know that NGA is doing a lot to make that happen.
And it just made me kind of realize, I'm sorry to talk about Bryn so much, but that's where I really feel with the construction.
No, I think it's great. I mean, obviously they're leading the way in the industry in a lot of ways. And I saw that last week. So that happens to connect.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that was your background, but it's all that when you
all goes kind of together, how we're just growing and evolving and getting better, from equal opportunity on the receptionist line to women presidents.
Absolutely. Yeah, all the way up. And that's the thing, is more women see someone like her doing it. They look around and say, because she can, I can, and she's already done it, so now I can do it too. And I think that is a really powerful thing when you start to see more people like you that are doing things that you might want to do and making it happen. So I love that.
It's it.
Well, the next thing we're going to talk about is How Women Rise. How Women Rise is a book that we both actually love. It's kind of interesting. I haven't met a lot of other women that when I say the words How Women Rise, they say, oh my gosh, I love that book. You have a story, so I want you to tell a little bit about How did you discover the book? Because my executive coach gave it to me when I became a manager, and I read it, and it really changed my perspective and started to make me look inside at things that I could stop doing that would help me be more successful in my career. How did you discover this book?
Oh, it just the universe has its magical ways. But you know how we were talking before when I went to college right after high school and I didn't finish and was a white chair. I picked it. I wanted to finish what I started.
Yeah.
So I was about a little over halfway through from the first time going. So I went back to school as an adult. I graduated in 2019 to finish my bachelor's in communications, but it was my leadership course. It was my capstone course, where it was one of the books we had to read.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And I should say that St. Kate's, where I went in St. Paul, Minnesota, is a traditionally all-female school. So I was an adult class, and it was all women in that class. But learning, it was also like therapy, right? But so learning.
Yeah, it's a powerful book. I remember when I read it, I felt kind of like I was in church, like getting preached to, because it was like, oh, I'm guilty.
Yeah,
like, this is me. Especially on some of like perfectionism and some of these ones that I was just killing myself trying to get things 100% right all the time, spending hours on things that should have taken a few minutes because I just couldn't let it go. Or, you know, other ones that really hit me. Not every one of it's 12 habits for women that haven't read this book. Highly recommend it. We're working on a program through Build Women to come out with a training program where it takes you through the 12 habits, talks about it. You have a community group to kind of go over things with and really network together through this. And that's why we're talking about this today, is to kind of address how have these successful women that I know that I've seen amazing things come from, how have they also dealt with some of these challenges that we have that hold ourselves back? And I think every woman deals with at least some of these. So we're going to talk about two today, and that is building relationships, but not leveraging them. So historically, women are really good relationship builders most of the time. They nurture people, they love people, they have like a collection of people that they have relationships with. But when it comes to actually asking for something from them, to leveraging them, they get wildly uncomfortable often. Not every woman, but a lot of women do not like to make the ask. And especially if they really care about that person and they feel like it could be a problem with the relationship later, or what if they say no when I ask them this? So how have you seen that happen? And I know you have a balance of sales and now doing some other things, especially when you make a relationship with someone that you need to turn into like a sales relationship where you ask them for something, even in your role today, a sponsorship, whatever it is. How have you struggled with that or seen people struggle with that and then overcome that not leveraging part?
It's hard. It's really hard, right? For me, it took a lot of years. And then to remember, it's not personal. Like I'm not personally putting this person out if I ask, right?
Yeah.
Ask for this help. They can say yes or no. They might be happy to help. And it's remembering how I feel when someone asks me, right? And usually I'm very happy to help. And if I can't, I won't. So it's getting out of your own way over and over again. And sometimes that feels big or little. And I love to overthink things to death. Like, you know, back to the 12 habits, it's like, okay, I got them. But then you like level up and you're like, oh, I need them again. Like I'm
yeah, it's simply a refresher course for me going through this.
Yeah,
yeah, because some of the things you struggle with, like I used to struggle a lot with perfectionism. I feel like I'm not going to say I'm over that, but I don't struggle as much. I know it's a problem. I think about it when I'm doing it. Now I have other stuff, and that wasn't maybe 5 years ago wasn't an issue for me. I think as we grow and evolve in our careers and our life, some of the struggles we have do evolve, and maybe we get past one thing and move on to the next, or whatever it is in our life and our career that's making that happen. So I have seen that people really can utilize, like you said, relationships in their life in a way that people are grateful for them asking. I say in sales a lot, people really love to buy, but they hate to be sold. I think it's about the approach. And I also think you need to know, you know, when you ask someone, like you said, they may say no. It may get a little awkward, but phrasing it the right way, I think, is a really good way to start. Like, how can I ask this in a way that's not a super high pressure, like sales pitch? It's just what do you think about this? Would One question I like to ask people, and this is a Chris Voss technique from Never Split the Difference, another really good book, is saying, would it be ridiculous for me to ask you to do this podcast, Mel? Or would it be ridiculous for me to ask you to introduce me to this person, or to, see if your work would be interested in hiring another salesperson, or whatever it is. And then you're getting to know. So no, it wouldn't be ridiculous. Or maybe it's like, yeah, it would be ridiculous for me to ask you to do this. And it's not going to happen.
Right.
But rarely ever does that happen. You usually get a no if you're asking the right questions.
That, or you might get like, no, it's not, or like, this is who you should ask instead.
Yeah. I'm not the person to do that, but try this person. You'll usually get something instead of like, hey, I need you to ask this person this. And then they're like, oh, I can't do that. But if you phrase it and try to get them to say no, it's really weird how psychology works. It's very rare that people don't say no, it's not ridiculous.
There's Dale Carnegie has some, I forget, it's like How to Win Friends and Influence.
Yeah.
Such an outdated title, by the way.
Yeah.
There's something in there, like it's one of his.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Well, also the law of reciprocity is a big deal. And I think that book talks about it in Influence by Robert, I think it's Cavelli. But he talks about how, hey, they've probably asked you for stuff in the past too, and you've helped them. Yes. So remember, like, how many times have you said yes and never asked them for anything? And then they're waiting to pay you back. They want to help you too. Like, they're asking for you to give them a way to repay you the reciprocity. So remember that as you get scared. I think women especially, they're like, I don't know, what if they say no? So what? What if they say yes? I think we overthink the word no way too much. I mean, in sales, you hardly ever hear yes the first time. Like, if you get a yes on the first pitch, the first time you walk in the door, the first time they meet you, like, you're doing great. Usually it's 8 times, and most people quit after 5. Most salespeople, women, men, anything, they get to the 4th or 5th time of asking someone for their business, asking for the sale, whatever it is, and they're like, I'm out. But 8 times is what it takes 92% of people to close on a deal. So like, very few people are getting to that last stage where actually the stuff is happening. So you can endure no to get to a yes, whether it's a friend or not. You can win at life in general.
You can. And if you really believe in what you have to offer, right? And it's a good service and you can back it up, keep pushing. I think that's the whole point, is like, if you're really, you got the right team behind you to do this, the support to do, like, just keep going. Like, what's there to lose? Like, that's kind of starting from that game point. Like, you have this great thing, keep going. Just keep going, if you believe in it. So, yeah.
And if you're, like you said, if you're asking for something that could symbiotically help them too, a friendship, whether a business relationship, whatever it is, and you do have something to offer them, then you're being unfair to them by not offering it to them.
Really.
I mean, in a lot of situations. So I think that's huge. It's a scary thing for a lot of people, especially young people. I find that Gen Z likes to text instead of call people, or, real direct communication is not their favorite usually. And I love Gen Z. I don't have any problem with them at all. But they just don't like to call people on the phone. So sometimes to call and ask for something or ask for the PO, a lot of salespeople, they don't remember that little point of like, did you ask for the sale? Did you ask them for the business? And that's huge, right? Just ask. And so that's a big tip that I have for people, whether you're in sales or not. It doesn't matter if you're selling something, you're in sales. If you ask your kid to go to bed at night, you're in sales.
Yeah.
If you ask your spouse for something, you're in sales. If you are talking to someone as an HR leader or IT person or whatever, trying to get them to adopt a principle or a policy or a new technology, you're in sales. Yep. So people get hung up on the word sales or leverage, but it's life. That's how life works.
It's what we do normally. It's when you put these words to it and you're like KPIs and takeaways and all this.
And people get crazy. They're like, I don't know what that means, So just do what feels natural to you and your strengths. Like for you, connection is so big that you could ask me to do anything. Probably I'd pretty much do it. Don't take advantage of me, Mel. Never. I mean, you just have that personality. You've done so much for me in the short time we've known each other that I would do anything that I could to help you. And I think most people feel that way about you. So you're a great relationship builder. And I think you also have that leverage part where you can do it. So, because you've got that sales background.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, thank goodness. And that was a lot of years of a lot of tears and hard work. And I
Yes.
mean, truly.
Yeah.
And after everybody's story, right? There's like, but you never see how hard it was.
Yeah, it's God, isn't that the truth? It's,
It is.
the fanfare and the red carpet rollout are usually the red carpet is stained in blood because
Yeah.
it's hard. Like life is not easy. And I think that we often give up too soon, like you just said. We we see people's success and say, I want to be the CEO or I want to be this or that. I want to make this much a year. And you don't see the 20 years or whatever it was that paved that path to get there that were horrible, like hard, a lot of late nights, a lot of, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
And then they ended up being in a good place. So I think, especially for young people, that's an important message to share is that it's not linear and it's certainly
Right.
not easy. And if you think there's a way to make money and be successful and it be like the easy button, it's probably a scam.
Right.
There are like a few small like windows where that could happen in life, but it's very rare. So
And
get ready to work hard. That's all I have to say.
it's hard to explain too, because money is very important, right? To making a living and whatnot. And it make as much as you want or as little, whatever you want. But it's when you put that kind of in there, it's hard to feel more natural about it too. I think when
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Yeah, for
Learning,
sure.
you just got to go through the experience, really. With some of this
Yeah.
stuff.
And usually where you end up, if you let it rat out like that and you just keep working hard, it's usually better than you expected it to be.
Yeah.
If you don't try to get to a certain place at a certain time with a certain title and a certain pay, I'm not saying you don't strive because I'm definitely
Right.
a hyper
Right.
achiever, but I like to plan things. And sometimes, like, I find that my plans are crap and I
Right.
should just go with it.
But still, it's like, but follow where your heart kind of leads
Yeah.
you as much as you can, because it follows you. It really does. Like the success and the
Absolutely.
money does too.
I
mean,
agree.
it's all hand in hand.
Yes, for sure. The next habit is failing to enlist allies from day one. So you're in a new role, you're in a new company, you have a new territory, and you just decide you're going to let it kind of ride a little bit. You don't need to really go in hard blaze and say, I need help, I want to learn, I want to do whatever. Tell me about that. How do you prioritize learning and becoming an expert and really building connections with people without feeling like a burden? A lot of times people want to just lay low and kind of get the lay of the land first.
This one was good because I mean, I did some reflecting on this quite a bit, and I realized so what I tend to do, smart or not, is I will always get to know my coworkers first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
I don't people anyways. And
Yes.
this is because I've been with NGA for 3 years and looking back on my old habits, but to me it was, tell me about your job, and I was genuinely curious, right?
Yeah.
And then I can see how my job fits into that, and just kind of going around with like your core team that you do that with. Then I got a sense of where I fit in, what that person needs, and what I can ask them for, or like who's
Yeah.
going to help me out when I made a mistake. The whole thing. So you kind of build that trust with your team first on the inside, and then it's the same idea on the outside because your customers are going to make mistakes, or you're going to make a mistake, but it's
Sure.
really you're like honest and
That's a really good point to try to make sure that you ask them about them because people love talking about themselves and their job and they want to be they want to be made to feel important. And so if you can do that for people, then they feel naturally like they can trust you and then they're going to share more stuff with you and hopefully tell you where the landmines are like, hey, watch out for this because this is really tricky, or this person really did this and probably you should have done this instead, or giving you like a little low key feedback like, hey Mel, like you're about to go wrong or stuff, like check this out.
exactly, because they you don't have that attitude of like I know what I'm doing or whatever. They're like, hey, FYI, like I saw this happen before, or sometimes it wasn't always like an FYI. So we'd be like, hey, look at what you did with this grid order. This is but it's still the same. Like it stopped a huge mistake, and I'm happy I got a for it. Like that's fine.
Some of my early mistakes when I was selling doors, one of them actually wasn't even really technically my mistake, but I'll never forget it. We ordered like 300 exterior fiberglass doors, and they were Craftsman doors for a multifamily job. And they had 2 peep sites for ADA access. Every door had a peep site here and a peep site, here. and we ordered them from the factory already peep sight board. So they were coming in, and somehow it should have been a certain size from the bottom of the door up, and it got punched in wrong, we'll just say. And then there was a big, you said this, but this, and, anyway, 300 doors. And I had only been there, I think, maybe a year or two. And it was August. So the hottest month of the year in Georgia. And all of my team, my management team, had to go out and bondo those steel doors with the peep sights in the wrong spot and rebore every single one of them. And, like for years. I mean, honestly, when I hear the word peep sight today, I have like a little shiver down my spine because I felt so bad. It actually was not, this one really wasn't on me, but I felt so damn bad because here I was in the air conditioning, entering orders, because I needed to be doing that. And they were out there bondoing. I'd go check on them and like, they'd be sweating. And like, I was just so, oh man,
That makes you remember. You'll never
ever let that happen again. Like there would never be a peep sight that wouldn't be checked, like and signed off by the customer with like a picture of this is where it is this right? And it never happened again. But that was a painful lesson. It was painful for other people than it was for me. A lot of ribbing.
Yes. Well, I had plenty of those. I mean, even like right before we moved to North Carolina from Minnesota back in 2020, I may have sold the job at cost by accident. And then I'm like, peace out, I'm leaving. So
good luck, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us. Like, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It happens, And I think that's the thing, that if you go in with a spirit of like, hey, I'm going to screw up. I'm going to learn a lot. And I either fail and I learn, or I win. And either way, I win. And so that's the business of, especially when you're in millwork or glass, something that's very technical. It's not like a bundle of 2x4s where you can just go pick up the 8-foot studs and bring back 9-foot if you send the wrong thing. Like anybody can buy studs, right?
Right.
You do custom glass or custom door and it's wrong, like no one's going to buy it. I mean, maybe if you sell it on consignment, but it's going to sit in your shop.
Yeah.
And there's no wrong
in the shop anyway. So
yeah, exactly. There's lots of lessons. We have lots of scars on that. I'm sure we can share. But the one thing I want to ask you about, for a young person coming into the industry, what would you tell a young woman, especially that's, 18, 20, and she wants to come into this industry, specifically the glass industry? What would you give her as a piece of advice of how to survive and really thrive in that industry?
For me, it would be learning, I guess if it was like in the field, and I hate to draw this distinction, but it would be finding the right people for her to talk to.
Yeah.
Ways, but I know plenty of them out there, right?
Sure.
That way. But like say it was my niece and she wanted to do something, office it would be the learning yourself, be honest, be open. It would be all the things that I've kind of learned up to this point.
Yeah.
And don't think of like you're the odd person out or anything like that. Like just go in and show them.
Yeah.
On there as much as anybody. I don't know if that's
well, believing in yourself is so much of what success is. I really think self-doubt stops us way more than anybody else. We talk a lot about being a woman and all this stuff, but it's not really a woman or man thing. If you don't believe you can do something, if you believe that you cannot, you will not.
Yes.
And it's clear. It's not a question. You will not do it.
Yeah.
But if you believe and you keep working on that belief and you do the action plus belief, eventually you will probably figure it out.
Yes.
Most of the time. It will probably be hard, but you will get there. So if any woman coming into this really wants to do this, and like we talked about, find the allies, do what you need to do to build relationships that will support you. And there are a hell of a lot of men in this industry that will do that.
Yes.
I want to make sure always that I talk about that. Like I have men in my life right now that I've known for a while, that have been in different parts of my career, different allies, that literally call me and say, like, hey, we have this thing. We think this would be a good job for you. Or we think this client, you should call them all the time. And like, hey, we think you should go ask about this, or you should speak here. They say my name in a room of opportunities, and it's not women all the time. It's men and women. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful for those men in my life because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now in my business if it wasn't for them.
Yes.
And that's important to say because you can find a male on the job, and good thing because there's going to be a lot of them, a lot more of men than women most of the time, that can teach you everything they know and make you impeccable at this career or this trade.
Yeah.
So don't discount because they don't look like you that they can't teach you or won't be willing to teach you, because I found that to be the exact opposite of the truth. There are a lot of men that would be glad to teach you everything they know, and they want you to be better than them, just like you were talking about with the person you were mentoring. They want to be, hey, I'm here, and because I taught you everything I know when you're younger, you're going to surpass me so much quickly.
Some of them have daughters too, right? So
yeah.
But it's and unfortunately it's like, but you're also there to show them like, oh, hey, I didn't think of it this way. That might be a little bit tougher on you, right? Because you are, one of this year around, whatever. But then they just learn, and it's not like, let's keep it that way.
Yeah. It's been like safety gear. I've been seeing a lot about that, like, women's safety gear. I have a friend on LinkedIn she's amazing. Her name is Amy, and she has this company called the Safety Rack. And she talks about like, hey, how do we find boots that fit women right? I never really thought about that because I don't work in the trades 12 hours a day with steel-toed boots on, hard hats, safety vests, coveralls. Like, how do you find comfortable, well-fitting stuff, right, that actually fits women? Because obviously our bodies are shaped different than each other even. So you might have a woman that fits great in this and another woman that doesn't. And so we got to work on that. Little stuff like that, if we can make that happen in the industry, it will make a woman that comes into these jobs feel a lot more comfortable.
Right. And eventually the price points will be down, right? Because it'll be more high volume orders for women.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it needs to work, but yeah.
But for now, I think with the labor shortage and everything that's going on, it's how do you get this person in and get them trained and make them love this job so they don't leave? And if that's a pair of boots that are extra $100, then I think that's worth the spend, right?
Yeah. Yep. And have, make money, right? As much as you can to the proverbial dollar and be set up and
absolutely
hang out with people like me and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Last question for you. This podcast is called The Grit Blueprint, and I love the word grit. I've always loved it. I think it really stands for power and resolve, strength, which we know that I love talking about strengths. What does grit mean to you? And how do you feel like you show up with grit in your life to be successful in this industry?
Oh, grit means to me like you're not afraid to like get your knees scabbed up or fall down or resting on your pants. But like for me, it's more or less when I'm in a situation or something similar, it's reminding me of like really tough ones that I've overcome. Sometimes it's like when I was in 9th grade and I did not think I was going to make it to the top of the Grand Canyon. We had hiked the whole thing. It was nice. Like I thought for sure I was going to die, but I got there. I got to the top somehow. Yeah. And it was almost practically like on my hands and knees. But I did it. So it's remembering those moments and then going in and be like, okay, I got it. Like kind of like a box.
Yeah, and sometimes it is that physical grit. Like, I really don't know if I can do this. But being that mental, strong resolve, our mind plays so many tricks on us, and asking what is the story that I'm telling myself versus what is the real story. Yes. And the stories we tell ourselves are always usually a lot worse in most people's minds than what the reality is. What's the worst case scenario? For sure. I love the Grand Canyon story. I can see that.
It's so true. And I had so it was like a church youth group bear with, but someone in front of me, they're like, "Mel, you got this." So it was grit and support, right? Because really, like, you got this.
You have a group of people with grit; it's almost unstoppable. It really is. I mean, those types of generational people that push each other, that they just have something that a lot of people don't, like a gear. I call it like an extra gear where you can flip into that higher gear than most people have. Those people stand out to me, and I think that they're the ones that are running our industry and will be in the future. And that's a lot of younger people that have grit. So I love seeing it, and I think it's important. And especially as a woman in this industry, you do have to have a lot of it. So I love that answer.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it's just showing up and getting dirty if you need to, too. I mean, truly.
And being able to just do what you need to do to get to where you need to go, for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the Grit Blueprint podcast. I love talking to you. It's always fun to have conversations, and being in person with you in Nashville at BEC. I'm very, very excited about that. Can't wait. That's not very long now. So we'll see. If you're not signed up to go to BEC, come and see Mel and I there. We will be there. And it is March 4th through 6th, right?
March 3 through 5. Oh my, I'm the worst.
Yeah, I think it's 4th through 6th. All right. So, Mel, thank you so much. And we will see all of you on the next episode of the Grit Blueprint.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Stephanie.